3, 2, 1. What's up, y'all? I may look a little different. It's because I'm not in my usual studio. I'm at the parents' place, but that doesn't mean we can't make a dope Weeknd video for you. As always, let me introduce our guests. Let me introduce your co-host, Chesco, on the other line. As
Happy
always,
to be here. Friend of the show. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Podcast. Heard a lot about y'all.
Rare appearance from Chesco on the show. But of course, we have our buddy Omar from Thought. Y'all have definitely seen his videos before. Go ahead, say hello.
Great to be on here again. Excited to talk about the newest piece of content from the Weeknd.
Absolutely. Yeah, appreciate you. If you guys have not somehow seen his videos, his channel will be linked in the description below. But we also have a video over there talking about all the Weeknd's music videos from this Dawn FM era. But today we are talking about the highly anticipated Dawn FM experience, exclusively streamed on Amazon Prime Video, that I feel like we were waiting on something, and we finally got the answer to our calls.
Yeah, he really introduced this album as a cinematic experience, just like After Hours was, but he has given us that full feature film length experience on that Amazon Prime platform. And so it's worth it to really look through and see what he's trying to tell us about the album and about the characters and the story of the album through this piece.
Absolutely. It really lives up to what he teases it, not as an album, not as, new music by the Weeknd. It's like a sonic masterpiece, and that's what it is.
Sonic Universe.
Sonic Universe, that's it. Yeah. And it makes the whole world tangible, like that exact world that you envision in your head. Well, first of all, let's discuss what it actually was.
I think, what you were saying is it is a live performance of Dawn FM, which is definitely something I was looking forward to. Having listened to the album and seen the music videos, I was like, what do these look like live? The Weeknd, he always does his different variations of it live, but it was basically, he starts, outside of the club. He kind of sees the light and then he passes out, and all of a sudden he's in this party again. He basically is performing. There's all these different set pieces, the same familiar scene with the club and the people dancing around him. He goes through not the entire album, which I thought was an interesting choice, but specific songs of the album. And it still ends and has a kind of a cinematic and narrative through line that there definitely is a story to this cinematic experience inside the story of Dawn FM. But yeah, it's really just one long live performance, similar to his Vivo performances from the After Hours era.
Yeah, but times 100.
Yeah.
And it also really reminded me of the listening party, when he first dropped the album.
Yeah, exactly.
That too was on Amazon Prime, and just that live stream of him vibing and dancing to every song on the album in front of that crowd of partiers. And so I thought there was an interesting parallel with those two experiences, except that first one didn't have as much of the narrative tied into it and wasn't worked in with the story as much as this one was.
And I think it's cool how cohesive everything has been. And with that, I think we should jump into what we thought or anything that stood out, some highlights from the Dawn FM experience that we think is important, and to look at the context of Dawn FM, the album.
First of all, I think this was a cool kind of depiction of not only the Weeknd's vision for Dawn FM, but I also think this was a really cool taste and teaser for what to expect from the concert, from the tour that's happening later this year. So that's going to be interesting. That's fun. Expect to really be in that, hellish state, whatever that was for the After Hours segments, and then, find ourselves in that nightclub purgatorial type deal for the Dawn segments. But the sets were insane. Obviously he takes us through that gasoline nightclub that we see in the music video, and and they have the Take My Breath masks there. I really want one of those.
That's top tier merch right there. I would have started wearing masks again just to wear that mask. For real.
For real.
The Dawn FM mask.
Yeah, and my personal favorite set was the Out of Time.
That was dope.
Set. I really loved how, we've been going through this party scene up to that point, and then of course, Out of Time is this super introspective song, so it's only right that all he sees is himself. And I really love that symbolism, and I think it just fits so well. Whenever I listen to Out of Time, I have that image of, if you don't trust him a little, then come right back, girl, come right back, baby, I'll treat you right. I think that's the big thing from this thing is I really loved how much I was just oh yeah, that's kind of exactly what I pictured in my head when listening to this album. So I don't know, Omar, did you have any personal experiences like that, where an image was really kind of consistent with what you've seen, and just your general other highlights?
I like what you guys were talking about before, the narrative and cinematic end to this entire experience. I liked the partying stopping, the light getting bright, him like approaching the dawn, like we've talked about, is the end goal throughout the music videos and throughout the album. But just sort of his like performance in terms of the acting is also what brings a lot of it together. His kind of like defeated like little sliver of hope look that he has on his face when he gets to that point. You could really see like all these things happening to the character. Like it feels realistic. It feels like this journey that you're with the old Abel on. So I think he tells that story really well throughout, and we could of course get into the specifics. Jumping
off what you just said in terms of the acting that he brings to this performance, there's a part in I think it goes from, I think it's after Take My Breath, where, you know, the party's bumping and he ends up like fully on the ground, or like he just like collapses, and then everyone like is crowding around him, like kind of being all rowdy, and it's like this really crazy transition into the next song where like the floor that he's on, the crowd goes away, the floor like sinks down, and that's when we get into Out of Time. That whole imagery of like the below, you know, like the whole surface level and then below the surface,
further down,
like
the multiple dimensions.
Exactly. That motif is like throughout this whole Dawn FM experience. Also, like, I love Less Than Zero, where he brings the whole party back and it's just the girls, which I thought was like the most like future-esque like toxic imagery. It was like perfect. This is like right on the money. But yeah, no, I think overall
it's like the small things like that really give it like The Weeknd's character too. You could tell how much like creative control he had because of the things like that.
Yeah, and it just makes it that much more interesting to watch. One detail I really loved was, if you guys noticed, OPN, he's in the back for the whole thing, you know, DJing the whole time. And he's like wearing this really creepy mask. It's like another person's face on top of his face.
It's his face. It's a mask of his face on his face.
Oh,
similarly, I was like, I took it for granted, like, oh shoot, like there's OPN, cool. And then cut to him again. I'm like, wait a minute, someone looks
off. He look all pale. He
looked like the mask from Good Time, you know? That, like,
shit.
Weird, like kind of, it was just off enough to where it was creepy. You know, which I think fits into that world. Yeah, love that OPN was there, first of all. Love that. Another conversation from that is like the different kind of musical variations that you'd have. Like you'd have little synth runs throughout each song that kind of felt a little different, gave it an extra atmosphere, along with the live aspect of it, the crowds, like during that breakdown to Take My Breath. What did you guys think about it specifically being a live performance type deal, like, which is something we haven't really talked about yet, you know, with the crowds, with the live vocals, that being like a big part of this whole thing?
Honestly, it's great promo for his tour. Right. Like I definitely see it as like him giving fans a little glimpse of what to expect when they come see the show in person, which, you know, just on a marketing side is just a good idea. Like this album is very like self-aware in terms of its musicality, and I think about it in terms of the fact that it references itself being a radio station. It's not made like in a vacuum. It's made to be like listened to by a group of people, and like the edge to it, the vibe to it is like a group of sinners that are all listening to this on a radio station on their way to like this next realm of reality. Like, and all those people are just like having a party, like not caring about what comes next, until the moments on the album where they do have to care about what's next. But like what happens is it's like the Weeknd taking us all on this very personal journey through like a dance party, through like him like dancing like there's literally no tomorrow, because there is no tomorrow. Like it's just the dawn is next, you know. And so I think the use of partying is very intentional.
Touching on that, there's one thing that I really noticed that I think kind of speaks to what Dawn FM really is, and why he's bringing us on this journey through this specific setting. Always we return back to the dance party, return back to the dance floor, it's always in the club. There's always a bunch of people. We've kind of seen this imagery before, where he's like performing to people. It's something he often uses a lot, like in the Can't Feel My Face,
Save Your Tears.
Like he often uses the audience as kind of a narrative, like motif to us, the audience or the mainstream. And there's this moment right at the end after we just went through like this, 30-40 minute performance of him bringing us along this crazy dance party, and then he gets like tempted by all these demons and stuff like that. Where at the very end we see him, after the music cuts, the entire dance floor is basically dead. Like everybody is laying on the ground, passed out. Even the DJ is like passed out over the keys, and it made me think, like, we've seen this several times where it's like everybody else is done except for him. He's the only one alive, similar to the Moth to a Flame music video.
I was just gonna say,
all those bodies, and he's the only one left. And so it got me thinking, like, he's always talking about this version of hell. What is hell? He's like, Dawn of Him is purgatory on his way to hell. Why does it feel like he's being punished all the time? And why is he so distraught about it? And I think it's because I feel like music to him is that double-edged sword, where it's like at the end of the day, when the music's done, he still has to deal with all this shit. He still has to deal with all the intense emotions.
It reminds me of that one After Hours music video where he's performing in front of the Jimmy Kimmel audience, and then he walks out and he's alone. I think it was the After Hours short film. But that's such a great point that you make. It's like his music is his only way of connecting with all these people around him, and like having that feeling of not being alone, but like that loneliness is something that's really emphasized in like both of those situations, where like he ends up at the end of it all, like all these masses of people around him, and he actually doesn't have like a single person like actually by his side.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it also speaks to something we were discussing in part 1 of this video over on Thoughts channel, where we're talking about how he views himself, that people view him as like a prophet, and people view his music as his his testament and what he has to say. So he has that that weight that he holds on him of him having to be mindful of what he's saying, which is why I feel like his music has gotten more and more conscious and like more thought-provoking, and he's been able to access more of that, as opposed to what we saw before with Beauty Behind the Madness and Trilogy, Starboy, where it's a little bit more about life of the party, lavish lifestyles, all that stuff. Now he's kind of taking us on this journey. So I think that really speaks to, where he's going with this whole trilogy. Is I feel like we're really gonna, with Afterlife or whatever that next album is, I think we're gonna go like there with it. I think he's gonna really like try to take us on this journey and give it a satisfying conclusion.
The one thing that really stands out to me is that why I feel like Dawn FM is so tragic. In my opinion, Dawn FM is way more tragic than After Hours. After Hours, we get the fun of it all, and then Dawn FM is him paying for those sins. But a lot of people think it's like, it's like the sins of his relationships, or it's like the lifestyle. But I almost think like he feels like music, or making music, is now, it used to be a form of pleasure, a form of success, releasing all these emotions, and now it's almost like punishment. Like he's kind of set himself on this path of being destined to make music about all his pain and misery, and like that's the only way he can make the money, is like people relate to that. And so it's very existential in Dawn FM, and through the visuals, especially through like this experience, and like, is this like God's way of punishing him? He has to like go through these endless parties, these endless clubs, basically just re-traumatizing himself every time. And that's why at the end, when he ends, when everyone's dead and he's walking down the steps and it's Phantom Regret by Jim Carrey, I feel like that's him like reiterating, like, I need to remember why I even started making music in the first place. So I feel like, to your point, Chesco, like it's definitely gone from, we make music to turn up, to like, this is the music you have sex to, this is the music you drink to, where now it's like, fuck, like after all that's done, like what's really left?
It's such a good way of looking at it, like what both of y'all just said. Not even any comments, just amazing.
And what I love is that we start off outside, if it's the most fresh air I think we've gotten so far this era, and I feel like it's supposed to represent maybe like the mortal world. And then obviously like he sees the light and then passes out or dies. And then we get that like scene where he's kind of walking into the light, but before he can reach it, he's right back into the nightclub. And I feel like that's a perfect representation of what Dawn FM, the intro track, is supposed to feel like. It's supposed to feel like, again, going into that transitional plane.
I mean, like y'all just made some really great points.
What do you think about what we've been talking about?
Yeah, I mean, so like when I think about that opening scene now, like Like I think of the Phantom Regret line, like heaven's for those who let go of regret, but like you have to wait here when you're not all done yet. Like he's on his way to heaven, but it's like that moment of him being whisked back into the nightclub is him realizing he's not fully let go yet.
Yeah.
And it's like you guys brought up the great point that this art is like his therapy for him, and it's like how he expresses the darkest and deepest of his emotions. But him having to like party with a million strangers like every day on tour, singing these lyrics, reminding himself of the trauma is actually like kind of like a trap too. It's actually kind of like the curse that comes with the platform that he has, especially since like this music is about like lost love, like is about losing people that are like actually there, that actually don't make him feel alone. He's around all these people that physically make him feel not alone, but like at the end of the performance, when it's time for everybody to go, like he is alone. I doubt he's actually alone, like but like
he has a good team
but
with him,
like yeah, but like that must be how he feels. Like after losing that love in his life. The last thing I was gonna say was it's just interesting to me. I think Matt might have brought it up, I think Chesco brought it up, but just like the absence of nature anywhere. And I didn't think about that before, but like really, if you look through all the After Hours, all of the Dawn FM videos, there's not like a single tree in sight. Like you really get no access to the outside world, and it makes me think about like the flowers that bloom through in the music videos, specifically in Gasoline, and what that might mean, like nature actually breaking through to this kind of desolate, just soulless place.
Yeah, it definitely makes you think what the afterlife or the third installment of this trilogy could look like. He's kind of given us this reason to doubt if he does make it to the afterlife and what that even looks like. And to your point, Omar, about, I mean, you got to think like when The Weeknd is performing this, he's basically reliving what he's singing about over and over again. And what he's singing about is doing this over and over again. And so I feel like there's got to be some sort of like crisis you have, like with having to relive these things that you talk about reliving all the time.
And people are singing the lyric, like hundreds of thousands of people are singing back the lyrics to you while you're on stage. Like that must be a very trippy experience. Yeah.
And I feel like how that concert will go is we'll go through the world of After Hours. He'll die. And then all of a sudden the stage will change and it'll be that nightclub again for the rest of the show. It's like when you put that much of yourself in your art, it's like, I feel like it can start to become less therapeutic and more traumatic. And you're just like, oh shit, like here I am again. Like I thought, talking about all these things that I had done wrong in my life, let me relive those all the time. And so I feel like him dealing with that might be what the afterlife could be touching on, especially with how he set all of this up through this Dawn FM experience.
I think that's where the importance of him kind of defining those boundaries of, The Weeknd versus Abel. There's that interview that came out with GQ where it was like, he describes it as a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type thing.
Even before he introduced the album,
Yeah. So I love the idea that in Afterlife, whatever it may hold, it may result in The Weeknd deciding to kill this character off or retire it for a bit. And then who knows what's going to happen there. Like maybe he'll start making just music that he doesn't want to make, that he wants to make that doesn't really have to do with like his life, it's so personal, this whole experience has been. So I think that he's just kind of purging it all out now and just creating the best bodies of work that he can with that. And then we can transition into other things, whether that be as Abel Tesfaye or just as a new phase of The Weeknd.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
Abel the actor now. He's gonna do more movies, or
he's
got that series.
Yeah, The Simpsons.
Very excited for the series. Yeah. I didn't even see that, but I heard about it.
It's so crazy just hearing his voice talking, because he puts on a voice for as a kid, and then for the dad, and it's just like so like whoa, like
one cop that you just can't stop, because he's two cops, one cop and a copy of a cop. Two badges, one mind.
Wasn't he on like Family Guy and he was like, I'm a virgin?
Yeah, American Dad.
Or was that the Simpsons? American Dad?
I was
that
watching
so
that
good.
the other day, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, this dude is hilarious. Like the fact that he's able to play with those perceptions of himself, of that like,
shit is so funny.
He has a line, someone like spilled lasagna on her pants. She's like, oh, like look at all this lasagna on my pants, I wish someone would come clean it up or whatever. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna make you completely clean in the pants region.
'cause I really like lasagna.
The way he has this image of like, yo, like the Weeknd, the super dirty, grimy guy, but like he plays with it and make it super wholesome and all that stuff. Like it's, I don't know, like just the way he's navigating his
completely clean.
I think that's what's gonna happen is we're gonna see the Kanye-ification of the Weeknd. He's gonna turn to God. And he's gonna make only celibate music.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, that would be jarring if like the first time.
If he starts making music for virgins.
Yeah.
If he becomes a born again virgin. If that's the dawn that he's headed towards. That's what letting go of regret actually meant the entire time.
It's just being celibate, becoming a monk.
He never even wanted to have sex with Bella Hadid. He just wanted to cuddle.
He just wanted to cuddle, man.
He was in the studio, man. He just wanted to make beats. She'd come on to him.
That's why they broke up with him, is just because they're like, oh, this is not what I expected from the Weeknd. Like, this is what I wanted.
They're like, you really are a virgin? Oh.
He just wanted lasagna.
I mean, Escape from LA.
She just wanted the lasagna.
Escape from LA. She's the one who popped the verse, and she's the one who came up on him. Like he was not with it. But yeah, back to this Don FM experience. Last couple points. Did you guys want to discuss like any ideas for like what kind of storylines this had, you know, because I personally I think relating to the album, I think that this whole experience points to one line from Phantom Regret, where he's talking about purgatory and how Don FM are for people who haven't let go of regret. We've kind of touched on that a little bit, and Jim says,
but you could be there by the end of this song, where the Weeknd's so good and he plays all week long.
I could easily see this is like what every day is like in purgatory is. You wake up, you feel like you're going into the light, and then all of a sudden you're reminded quickly like, oh shit, here I am back in purgatory. And then you're put into this world of like, where they're just constantly testing you. Something, again, we've discussed with the Take My Breath, with Gasoline, is like purgatory. It seems like to Abel, or at least my interpretation of what Abel's doing is like, purgatory is like very real, very dark, a lot of vices, and it's just whatever higher power it is constantly like testing you, like, okay, are you going to give into drugs? Are you going to give into sex? Are you going to give into violence? All that stuff. And then once you kind of get sick of that cycle, you know, after just so many loops of it, then maybe you're able to, you know, go into that light. I've also read the theory. This is a really cool theory that I read on Reddit, that the songs he chose.
Reddit carries the Weeknd analysis.
Reddit carries for sure. Like
they go hard, bro.
They get on the Sherlock Holmes stuff. Like
I'm gonna say the leading fronts for Weeknd theories is Reddit and our comment sections, bro. Like actually,
the comments go nuts, bro.
For real.
They'll find people so confident, like, okay, I believe that this album is all about satanic rituals and like the bloodlust that comes from it. Like,
or they're like, you guys have it all wrong. Let me tell you, bro, in 1,000 words why.
Don't even get me started about like the Astroworld shit. When I made a video about that, oh my lord,
I've never seen at the height of it too. Yeah, I'm
pretty sure like if there is a devil, like he got exorcised by that comment section.
What were you gonna say, Chesco? Sorry.
No. That Reddit theory was that basically that the songs he chose and the set pieces were kind of sequenced to represent like the different eras, like the party scenes. Funny enough, it's 3 songs: Gasoline, How Do I Make You Love Me, Take My Breath, all take place in that party scene. It's like trilogy. And then Sacrifice, people pointed that there's like a greenish tint all over everything. You know, that's where you start to submerge lower and lower into that world, which is kind of what Kissland feels like. You know, it feels like you're submerging into that Tokyo dystopian world. And then Out of Time, Is There Someone Else, kind of represents Beauty Behind the Madness. You know, how he's kind of being more emotional, kind of being more accessible to the mainstream, but also to like his feelings. And then we kind of get into Starry Eyes, Starboy. That's kind of a reach there, but do whatever you want with that one. And then Less Than Zero is kind of like the radio hit, and that's kind of where we've been with After Hours and Don FM is like now he's like this radio star, big pop star. So that's another cool theory I've read.
So it's like each song represents a different time in his career.
I don't think it's like a hard and fast rule of like each song represents something, or at least just like the experience as a whole was kind of like representative of the timeline of his career, which
it
kind of fits into what our video was about, with like it being the life and death of the Weeknd. You know, each album being a part of a story overarching the Weeknd's entire life, and now he's died, goes to purgatory, and he's able to look back on it all. I don't know if this is just like it just happened to shake out like that, and we can have this interpretation of that, or if that's what Abel had in mind. But either way, pretty cool idea.
I think that's an interesting theory. I think like it is supposed to in some way like resemble like a life, like the course of a life, or like the course of a career. Like it's definitely temporal, and like on a large scale it's like there's definitely a beginning, middle, and end that show like serious character development. So
That's the thing that sucks about weekends. They gotta end sometime.
Yeah.
you know, it's like he really is a different person beginning to middle to end, so it definitely like spans a long period of time. Small things like him saying, I used to be the one who was lying on Is There Someone Else, but it's like that person that he's referring to is like the person he was like at the start of this album even. So it's clearly like evolutions of his character and who he is, and like spanning a long period of time. So I could totally see that being his career. It's so interesting when we think of this whole concept that like the Weeknd sees himself as his own purgatory, that like other people are in attendance at too. Like all his fans are also like at purgatory atoning for their sins, but they're like listening to they're listening to his music.
Exactly.
This album is a soundtrack to that, but it's also like his experience of it. So it's just like conceptually, it's just like crazy. It really makes you think about like how like where he is in his life right now, like how he's feeling.
For real. Yeah, and that definitely.
We hope you're good, bro. If you're watching, we hope you're good, bro.
We're praying for you. We're praying for you, bro.
You know, you can always talk to us. You know, you don't have to be alone again. Like
hop on the stream, bro. We can talk it out.
Yeah, for real. Hop on the podcast.
But yeah, Matt, what were you gonna say?
No, basically that.
Okay.
But yeah. Any other closing remarks for Dawn FM experience?
I just really enjoyed this thing. It kind of rekindled my not love, because like I've been loving this album, but kind of like my enthusiasm for it. And you started this whole thing off is that I feel like, you know, we kind of went into a bit of a hiatus with Dawn FM, and then to come back with what we've seen with potentially an Out of Time music video and then another music video, I think it kind of feels like we really are kind of kicking off into phase 2, and who knows what that'll bring, you know. So one thing I was talking to Matt about was this idea, this concept, whatever you want to call it, this live performance, half narrative, half performance art type deal, is something that now you look back at the Weeknd's discography and you're like, damn, I wish he did this for every single one of his albums, where he creates the world and creates a story and is performing as things are happening to him. And, you know, he kind of really like paints a picture of each individual song. Like I could easily see that for Beauty Behind the Madness, for Starboy, Kiss Land. But yeah, overall, just really enjoyed this thing.
It's just so interesting, like, that this is what he chose to invest a lot on. You know, like that was something I was thinking about watching it, because like something like this is just not cheap, like in no sense of the word. And he's already doing a live show, and he's already done these music videos. He already did like that live listening party performance that like to some extent was kind of similar to this in form. Like for him to have put all the resources he did towards this experience and really like put emphasis on that point that we've been talking about the energy from the concerts, the energy from other people, from his fans, like him being at the center of it. Like that's an image he really wants to drill into our minds with how many times he's using it. So I think it's something like I'm definitely excited to see how that image plays out, because you guys have pointed out he's done like concerts and stuff before in his music videos, but he's never done something like this. So this obviously meant a lot to him as like something to put out for this album. So I'm curious to see where he takes this, if he builds on this, if the story continues on to the next chapter of the trilogy.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think I'm definitely curious to see how he goes from one set piece to another, After Hours being that very much, like you said, cinematic, and Dawn FM also being that cinematic experience, but a lot more contained and a lot more focused on that party sequence. What does the next phase of Dawn FM and ultimately what does this mean for the third installation of the trilogy, as to what it looks like, what lessons did he learn, and where he's taking this character of the Weeknd to the grave or to heaven. So I guess that's kind of my final thing, is it's really making me think like the Weeknd for what he knows, is dead. Now, where does he end up?
All right, guys, there you go. There's our thoughts on not just Dawn FM experience, but I feel like it was kind of like a follow-up discussion on just the album as a whole, and what are we thinking? Any kind of follow-up thoughts on the concept of the album as a whole. So no, that was really fun. Thank you, Omar, again from Thought.
Always a pleasure to hop on the call with you guys. Always a pleasure to really like delve into these themes and these projects with you guys. And thanks again for having me. Can't wait to be on the stream.
Of course,
Appreciate
man.
you, bro.